Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mina and today's video is going to be a book haul, which I have not done in a couple of months. I think the last one that I did was back in April. As I told you guys in the last book haul, I don't tend to film a lot of these videos because I don't really acquire a lot of books at one time. So it just doesn't seem logical for me to actually film a monthly haul or something like that. However, since the last book haul that I uploaded, I have acquired a good amount of books over the past couple of months. So this is going to be kind of like a summer book haul, books that I have gotten from the very end of May up until now, which is mid-July. And I do have a decent amount of books. I have 14 books here to show you guys. About 6 of them, I think it's 6, I have already read, so I am going to go through them, kind of talk to you guys a little bit about what each is about, and also give you a brief review of my thoughts on each of those books. And then I have 8 books that I haven't read yet that I am looking forward to reading, and I'm just going to explain to you guys what all of those are about as well. So let's get started. This is probably going to take me a minute, so grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a snack. This is my snack of choice. If you guys don't know what this is, I feel like if you're a parent and you have children, you probably know what this is. It's like the little applesauce pouches. They are so good. I don't even care that they're made for children. They're just delicious. So that is what I am going to snack on while I show you guys all of my books. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. All of the books that I have here are mostly horror and thriller books. I do have one sci-fi that I also picked up that will be in this haul, but I was really going for the spookiness and the suspense these past couple of months, mainly because of Summerween, because of Camp Spooky. So yeah, also want to mention that some of these books you have already seen on my channel because I have either talked about them or have done reading vlogs of some of them, so some might be familiar to you. I won't spend too much time on those, but let's just go ahead, jump right in. The first 2 books that I'm going to mention are books that I have already talked pretty extensively about on this channel, and that is If You Go Down to the Woods by Seth C. Adams, as well as theme music by T. Marie Vanderlee. And these are both books that I picked up for Summerween. You guys already know how I feel about both of these books, so if you did not watch my Summerween vlogs, definitely go ahead and watch them. If You Go Down into the Woods is kind of like an It-inspired horror novel about a group of boys who are hanging out in the summer in the woods, and one day they discover the body of a dead person in the woods, and after that, mysterious and kind of violent things start happening to them related to that discovery of the dead body. So it has a very interesting premise. You guys know though that I didn't particularly enjoy this one for various reasons. It just didn't do it for me. I had a lot of problems with the writing. I had problems with the way that the story was told. So definitely not one that I highly recommend. I was kind of disappointed in this read, but definitely check out my Summerween vlogs if you want to hear me vent about this book. Theme music, on the other hand, was a little bit better. This is a supernatural horror and it is a debut novel. It was kind of an average read for me. I did enjoy some parts of it, but in the end it kind of let me down a little bit. This is about a woman who experienced a very difficult and traumatic past. When she was a toddler, her entire family was butchered, and it follows her as an adult returning to her childhood home where her family was murdered, and some supernatural psychological things start to happen to her as she is staying in that home, and she starts to question whether or not her father really was the murderer of her family, or if there was another person involved, or if something else happened to them. And she's kind of investigating this alongside a detective who was assigned to this case back when the murders took place. So it does have a very interesting premise. It's very complex, and I'm definitely impressed by the writing of this author, especially because this is a debut novel. But overall, I thought that it was an average read. Again, if you do want to hear my full thoughts about it, definitely check out my Summerween vlogs. I give you all of the reasons why I liked it and didn't like it, but it was a decent read, so I would still recommend it. The next book that I have here is a book that I picked up back on my birthday, which was May 31st, and that is The Remaking by Clay McLeod Chapman. And this is a book that is very interesting. This is a horror novel. I did read it already. I read it back in June. Again, it was kind of an average read for me, but I do think that it had a very interesting storyline and a very interesting concept to this book. It is basically about this small town legend of a witch who was killed by a mob. Her and her daughter were both killed for being witches, and it focuses on how that legend haunts and becomes a curse on the small town. And we follow the perspective of people who are trying to make a film about that witch legend. And one of the actresses who plays in the film, how her life kind of spirals out of control being involved in the making of this film, and how she becomes almost like possessed or like really consumed by the story of the witch. So it has a very interesting concept to it, and I feel like the author was trying to do something very different with this novel that I can appreciate. In the end, the execution wasn't quite there for me. I did have problems with the way that the story was told and how things kind of fit together. It felt a little bit disjointed to me, but I did enjoy a lot of the commentary that the author had in this book, and I feel like the main purpose of this book was really for the author to give his commentary and discussion on certain topics rather than making it feel like a very cohesive novel, if that makes any sense. Okay, so my camera just abruptly stopped filming because I ran out of space. Hopefully I know where it paused, but okay, I'm gonna continue what I was saying. So one of the things that I really appreciate about this book is the conversations that it had surrounding film and how people can become so obsessed with this like culture of like Hollywood and celebrity culture, and how we're constantly like remaking movies, and are they faithful to the original story or are they adapting and changing things, and how does like that change kind of warp the story over time, if that makes sense. So it had a lot of interesting commentary, and I feel like the author was trying to do something a little bit different and like revolutionary with his thoughts, but the way that it was executed into a plot didn't quite work for me, so it ended up being an average read. I didn't love it, but I appreciated it and what it was trying to say. So I do think that it's still an interesting book to pick up, and I would still recommend it, especially for people who love horror films and that genre in general. I think this would be a good read for you, just to kind of see like what he's trying to say with his conversations in here. The next book that I got was actually given to me by the publishers, so that is really awesome. I don't normally get books sent to me. I usually just buy my own books. But the book that I got was Hairpin Bridge by Taylor Adams. Taylor Adams wrote one of my favorite thrillers last year, which was No Exit. It was super fast-paced, super suspense-filled. I do have to say that this one, I did read it, was a little bit of a letdown for me. Not totally, but I just think that in reading No Exit, I was expecting certain things out of this book, and it kind of let me down a bit. It is about a woman who is trying to investigate the supposed suicide of her twin sister. So she goes back to the scene where the suicide happened, which is this infamous like suicide bridge, and she tries to have a conversation with the detective who is investigating and who was like kind of on the scene when her sister died. So it's kind of like a mystery, and there's a little bit of a Western feel to this book. I don't know really how to explain this without spoiling things, but I'm going to say that it felt very much like a Western at some points. And I'm not a huge fan of that storytelling element, that genre. So for me, I didn't really like that about this book. There was a very, very interesting like cat and mouse kind of chase scene at the beginning of this novel, and for the first like third of this book, I was super invested. It was so like fast-paced, so suspenseful, definitely like heart-pounding type of like suspense, which I really appreciated, and I think that Taylor Adams does that so well. However, towards the middle to end of this book, it started to drag a little bit, and I feel like this book, as with No Exit, the ending of this felt very, very long, and the pacing kind of dragged towards the end. So I definitely didn't enjoy this as much as I wanted to, but I still think that it's a decent thriller, and I feel like I would still pick up more books by Taylor Adams, even though the pacing of his books doesn't quite work with me sometimes. But it was a very interesting concept. A lot of twists, a lot of turns. If you like things like that, definitely recommend this one for you. The next book that I have is the book that I just posted a reading vlog for, and that is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This was my most anticipated read of 2021. You can see my thoughts in the vlog. I'm not going to go into them again here, but I am going to give you a little bit of a synopsis. This book is about a woman who is returning home in the middle of her college semester because of a tragic experience that she had, and she hitches a ride with a guy that she doesn't know. This takes place in the 90s, so we have to kind of suspend our disbelief here. Like, these are things that people did back in the day that we would not do today. And she starts to suspect that he's not exactly who he seems, and she starts to get paranoid that he could be the infamous campus killer that has been going around for a couple of years. Definitely a fun, fast ride, an easy read. Riley Sager is like a master at writing thrillers, so this one did not disappoint me, but it wasn't my favorite of Riley Sager's novels. So if you do want to hear my full thoughts, definitely check out my last reading vlog where I said everything I had to say about this. And the last book that I have in this haul that I've already read is Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. This is actually a backlist title. It was written, I think, in the 90s, I want to say. I thought it was the 80s at first, but I believe it was published, it says 1991. So I think that this was originally published that year, and it takes place in 1960. And I picked this book up because it is another inspired by it type of story. It is about a group of young kids, again, hanging out during the summer, and they realize that something is kind of off in their small town. A boy goes missing, and they start to investigate what's going on with the missing boy and some weird and creepy things that they're noticing around their school. And it's a supernatural horror book, so heavily inspired by It. Like, if you love It by Stephen King, this is definitely a must read. I literally just finished this one and I really liked it. Like, I really recommend this book. I would like to do a video in the future where I give you guys recommendations for books that are similar to It, because I know that that's like an all-time favorite of people's, and it's one of my all-time favorites. So anytime I find a book that is inspired by It or that shares similar plots, similar elements to it, then I definitely try to pick it up and read. This was a hefty novel. It's 555 pages, so it took me a while to get through, and I definitely think that this book could have been scaled down a bit, as with Stephen King's It as well, but I feel like it was very fleshed out. It had a lot of really strong, creepy horror imagery. Like, if you're looking for something like creepy and unsettling, I definitely recommend this one. It felt like a campy kind of like 80s horror movie that has like a lot of like crazy special effects, like especially towards the end. The chaos and like the craziness that happens in the end, like final battle scene. I was just like picturing it as an 80s movie with all of these like practical effects, and it was just so fun. Like, I totally recommend this one. One of my favorites of the year. Probably going to rate it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Wasn't perfect, but very good. Okay, so now we are moving on to the books that I have not read, so just bear with me and my understanding of the plots of these books. So the next book that I have here is called Blood Memory by Greg Iles, and this is also like a backlist title. I think it was written in the 80s, not quite sure. Okay, it was actually written in 2005, but I picked this one up because it is set in like swampy America, like bayou type of setting, and that's like one of my favorite like aesthetics. So I wanted to read a book that's set in a swampy bayou type of setting. This is about a forensic FBI expert, and she is suspended from her work because of, I think, like getting too close to a case or like dealing with some kind of like post-traumatic stress from a case. And she goes back to her hometown in Mississippi, and she finds herself plagued by nightmares and entangled with a married detective. So there's gonna be some like domestic drama in here. And it says that she finds 2 bloody fingerprints in her childhood bedroom. Supposedly, I think her father murdered someone when she was younger. That's what it says in the back here. And she's investigating and trying to solve the mystery from the past. So it sounds very interesting. It's giving me like vibes of theme music with the whole like my father murdered people when I was a child type of plot line, but I think this is more like detective procedural as opposed to an actual horror novel, but we shall see. The next book that I have is another one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and that is The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I have read, what is it, 3 Grady Hendrix novels. I read My Best Friend's Exorcism, Horror Store, and the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I enjoyed all 3 of those books. Really excited for this. This is a thriller that follows a woman who was a final girl, meaning she was the only survivor in a massacre. And I think she joins this support group for other people who have also been like survivors of massacres. That's why they're known as final girls. And one by one, there is a killer coming to like pick off all of the final girls from the support group. So obviously I have to read this because it has like slasher elements, slasher vibes going on with the whole like final girl trope. Really excited for this one. I heard good things about it, so I can't wait to read it. This is also the August buddy read pick for Camp Spooky, so I'm going to be reading it like towards the end of this month to kind of prepare myself for the discussion of this in August. It's going to be one of my next reads. I'm very, very excited. Got a break for this. Okay, the next 3 books that I have I actually just got today as gifts from my family because it is Eid, which is a Muslim holiday. So the first one that I have here is called And the Trees Crept In. This was actually recommended to me when we did our live show for the lake for Camp Spooky. Somebody recommended this as a really good supernatural horror novel. I think it's YA. I'm not entirely sure about the plot, but I'll read it to you guys. I'll read the blurb to you. It says, stay away from the woods. When Scylla and Nori arrive at their aunt's home, it's immediately clear that the manor is cursed. The endless creaking of the house at night and the eerie stillness of the woods surrounding them would be enough of a sign. But there are secrets too. Questions that Scylla can't ignore. Why does it seem that ever since they arrived, the trees have been creeping closer? Who is the beautiful boy who's appeared from the woods? Seriously? Is this beep gonna end? And who is the tall man with no eyes who Nori plays with in the basement at night? A man no one else can see, filled with just as many twists and turns as The Dead House, which I think is this author's other novel, and with achingly beautiful, chilling language that delivers haunting scenes. And the Trees Crept In is the perfect follow-up novel from master horror writer Dawn Kurtagich. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it sounds very creepy, sounds almost like a folk type of horror, and it's definitely supernatural, so I'm excited for this. The other book that I got today is called, let me move these out of the way, Unspeakable Things by Jess Laurie. This one has an absolutely beautiful cover. Loving the colors of it. Love the nature. The bike, top notch. This one says, don't go in the basement. Inspired by a terrifying true story, a heart-pounding novel of suspense about a small Minnesota, no, the other one was Mississippi. A small Minnesota town where nothing is as quiet or as safe as it seems. Casey McDowell's life in 1980s, so this takes place in the 80s, which I'm always looking for, seems perfectly wholesome. She lives on a farm, loves school, and has a crush on the nicest boy in class. Yes, there are her parents' strange parties and their parade of deviant guests, but she's grown accustomed to them. All that changes when someone comes hunting in Lilydale. One by one, local boys go missing. One by one, they return changed, violent, moody, and withdrawn. What happened to them becomes the stuff of shocking rumors. The accusation of who's responsible grow just as wild, and dangerous town secrets start to surface. Then, Casey's own sister undergoes the dark change. If she is to survive, Casey must find her way in an adult world where every sin is justified and only the truth is unforgivable. So definitely loving the small town vibes of this one, the creepy like party of her parents, the missing children, 80s vibes. Really looking forward to this. This is just something that I picked up kind of on a whim when I was looking for books to read for Summerween. I was going to get this one, but it wasn't going to come in on time, so I ended up just like putting it on my wish list, and I got it. And the other book that I got today is a graphic novel. It's the sequel to The OK Witch. I didn't even know this existed until I recently saw like an ad for it on Amazon, because I did read the original graphic novel and I absolutely loved The OK Witch. It's like the perfect spooky, cute graphic novel for like the spooky season, even though I'm going to read it as soon as possible. Love the artwork in this book, love the story. It takes place in Salem, Massachusetts. It's about a witch, and this one is called The OK Witch and the Hungry Shadow. So I believe it is about like a supernatural presence either inhabiting the main character who is a witch or something like that. I don't know, but I'm gonna read it and I will probably love it. Okay, just a couple more books left. The other book that I got on my birthday back at the end of May is a Stephen King, and that is Lisey's Story by Stephen King. The reason why I picked this up is because there is an HBO adaptation of this book, and I really wanted to watch it, but I was like, maybe I should read the book first. I did watch the first episode and I was intrigued, but I definitely do want to read this before I actually continue with the series. So it is about a woman who recently loses her husband, and her husband was a writer, and she starts to notice that there are these clues that her husband left behind, hinting at something dark involving his death. I don't know if it's like a murder or if it's something like supernatural. I think it's more supernatural because it involves like visions and dreams from what I could tell from the first episode of the show. So it sounds really interesting, but I don't know when I'm going to get to it because, again, we've got a pretty intimidating size Stephen King, so maybe I'll pick it up around like September, October. We'll see. The next book that I have is the book that I actually planned to start reading today, which is Such a Quiet Place by Megan Miranda. I have read Megan Miranda's other novel, which is All the Missing Girls. I really did enjoy that one. I thought it was a decent thriller, or a good thriller. It was more than decent. But this one takes place in a small town. I don't really know too much about what it's about, but I think there is a woman who used to live in the small town and now she has returned, and it says nobody knew that this woman would be returning to the small town. So I think there's some like mysteries and secrets involving her leaving and her return. Probably death, murder, something creepy. I don't know, but I absolutely love this cover, and it was one of my anticipated releases for this year, so I am excited to start this today. And the last book that I have for this haul is the one sci-fi that I've picked up recently. This also is one of my most anticipated reads of 2021. I can't believe I haven't read it yet because I was so excited for it when it came out back in May, and that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. The Martian is one of my favorite sci-fi novels of all time, so I am very excited to read this. I didn't love his other book called Artemis. However, I think this one is a little bit closer to like the plot and vibes of The Martian. It involves an astronaut who's stuck in space alone. Don't really know what else is going on in the plot. I don't want to know too much about it, but I have heard so many amazing things about it. People are loving this book. It's supposed to be like really funny. It's supposed to have the same kind of like witty banter that The Martian had, which I absolutely loved. So I'm excited to get to this. Again, don't know when that's gonna be because this is also an extremely long 500-page novel, and I get very intimidated by books that are more than like 350 pages. So that is it. Those are all of the books that I have recently acquired within the past couple of months. Most of them horror, some thrillers, one sci-fi. I've read 6 of them. I have 8 more to go. Some of them I'm actually planning to get to by the end of this summer, and some of them I will probably save for like the fall, autumn season, which is exciting. There's some other books that I want to pick up, but I'm trying to like hold off on doing any more like book buying until I get through at least like 2 or 3 more of these books here. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there are any books from this haul that you have read or you're interested in reading, let me know down below in the comments. What are some other anticipated releases of 2021 that you are looking forward to? I have so many like horror videos planned for the autumn season that I'm just like waiting to film. So definitely stay tuned, look out for those, and I will see you guys all in my next video very soon. I hope that everybody has a wonderful day today. Bye guys.